Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Human Factors Cast. This is episode 207. We're recording this live on May 27th, 2021. I'm your host, Nick Roome. I'm joined across the internet waves by Mr. Blake Arnsdorff.
Across the waves themselves. How are you, Nick?
Hey, Blake. I am fantastic. Normally we banter, but now we're doing some programming notes. I got to jump into some things because we got some exciting announcements here today. At the top of the show, I want to make sure everyone hears them. This is a big announcement, Blake. This is something
it's
a big one. We've been cooking this up for a while now. And we are proud to announce that we have opened up the Human Factors Cast Digital Media Lab. So it's basically what it is. Sounds like it's a lab. If you're interested in getting involved with the show, it's an opportunity to do that. If you're a grad student looking for more experience, if you're an undergrad looking for experience, students looking for that real world experience, we're incubating a bunch of different ideas here. And you know, the main focus here is to make human factors accessible and communicate it in different ways. But yeah, it's a great opportunity for anyone looking to get involved. If you're an academic looking to share your work, reach out to us. There's probably an opportunity here for you. Designers who want to work on your portfolio certainly can do that with us. If you do want to get involved, please get in touch with us. We can work together to figure out something that might be a good fit for you and your skill set. You know, we have blog articles that you can write. You can write custom code for our website, conduct interviews with people in the field, produce YouTube content, stream human factors related content on Twitch. That's something you can do. Contribute to our Patreon exclusive content, or come up with your own ideas. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do to help out the show. And so we are formalizing that in the Human Factors Cast Digital Media Lab. You know, like I said, contact us. There's a form on the website that you can get to us. You can reach us at humanfactorscast@gmail.com. Get to our website. You can leave a voicemail there. There's a bunch of ways that you can get to us. Reach out to us on social media, whatever it is. With that said, though, I do want to welcome the newest addition to the Human Factors Cast team, Katie Sabo. Maybe she's watching tonight. I don't know. Katie is actually joining us as a digital media production research assistant. So, you know, with that, she did publish her first article on our blog yesterday, giving a bit more detail on the cave syndrome that we discussed on last week's show. So go check it out. It's a great piece. Gets more into the nitty gritty than even Aaron and I did on the show. So it's a great companion piece to the podcast if you're looking for that. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. What do you think about the Digital Media Lab, Blake?
Oh, that's going to be so much fun. I'm just looking forward to getting a lot more people involved in various aspects in the podcast and just, you know, getting ideas out there. But I mean, your goal with this show has always been making human factors much more accessible. And I think this is like one of the giant leaps forward for what the podcast can do. So this is really cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Another kind of less pressing programming note. My office hours are going to change from 11 a.m. Pacific on Tuesdays to 1 p.m. Pacific on Tuesdays. Small change. With that, I think it's time for Human Factors news. Yes, that's right. It is Human Factors News. This is the part of the show where we search all over the internet, talk about human factors. This could be anything related to the field, as long as it's medical, privacy, security, robotics, artificial intelligence. We got some VR in there this week. I'm really excited. You name it. It's as long as it relates to the field of human factors, it's fair game for Blake and I to sit here and talk about. Blake, what do we have up first this week?
Up first this week, so how virtual reality can warp your sense of time. So Grayson Mullen, a cognitive scientist at UC Santa Cruz, wanted to know how virtual reality's effect on a game player's sense of time could differ from those of conventional monitors. So he and other of his colleagues designed a maze game that could be played in both formats, so both in VR and through conventional monitors. Participants in this study that they conducted would play both conventional and virtual reality formats, with researchers, of course, randomizing which version each student played or each participant played. And participants were then asked while playing the game whether they felt like 5 minutes had passed. Since there were actually no clocks in the game, each person had to estimate this time based on their own perceptions while they were playing the game. So the study found that participants who played the virtual reality version of this maze game played an average of about 72 seconds longer than before they actually realized 5 minutes had passed or claimed that 5 minutes had passed, compared to students who had done it on a conventional monitor. In other words, about 30% more of the time they realized they were actually in virtual reality than actual time had passed. So compared to your conventional format, where you're kind of thinking that time is just passing a little bit slower. So this effect where time goes faster than you think is called time compression. And time compression being observed amongst virtual reality, amongst players in virtual reality, is much more than you see in conventional gameplay. So Nick, it's been a long time since we've talked about anything VR, but initial thoughts, what are you kind of thinking here?
Yeah, it's obvious to me. And I think it's pretty much obvious to anyone who spent any extended period of time in virtual reality. Time gets away from you. And I mean, we can talk about some specifics here, but I think just my general thoughts, time gets away from you. And I think that's largely because you have no perception of the outside world. You're not looking at things that are changing, like the shadows slowly changing from day to night outside your window, or the ambient light in your apartment or home that give you those cues as to what time it is or how much time has actually passed. So just off the top of my head, yes, this makes sense to me. What are you thinking? Because you have a little bit of experience in VR.
So it seems like a no-brainer to me, and I do have like very, very limited experience with VR, but I know what it's like to get lost playing video games and realize like, oh man, 4 hours has passed, or not even just like watching and playing on conventional monitors or in my living room. So I could imagine it would be doubly so in VR. I mean, I've had basically one or two VR experiences, one of which was with you, and I could imagine just getting lost in just looking around in the world, much less playing a game. So it seems straightforward, but it may tell us a little bit more about virtual reality and how people kind of interact with it.
Yeah. So let's take a step back. Let's talk about virtual reality, where it's at now, just in terms of what's going on with VR headsets and where it's headed, right? I think that's a good place to start. So if you look at most headsets out on the market, I think there's a lot of focus on making these things more comfortable. You have something like the PlayStation VR, which fits on your head. It is clearly designed with comfort in mind, and things like comfort will extend the amount of time that people are able to keep them on their head. There's a bunch of different design considerations, like being able to press a button and decouple the lenses from your face, so that way air can reach up and vent into your glasses and eyeballs. These also, think about like the bulkiness of equipment from something like, in the 1980s, where you had these big bulky headsets. Now they're getting sleeker and more streamlined and less of a cumbersome thing, right? Like if you think about like the Oculus Quest, this is something that has no tether really, and so it's just a headset that you throw on your face, and it's light enough, and it plays games at a certain fidelity that is kind of unreal. So if you're thinking about the progress of where these things are at right now, these things are fairly comfortable to wear and are not going to cause discomfort when you're using them. In terms of where it's going to go, I mean, we even talked about a couple of these things on the show before, where you have these patents where they're like super flat up against your eyeballs, and there's not this like bulky, heavy weight in front of your face pulling your head down and straining your neck. So we can see that there's progress being made to shorten the distance between your eyeballs and the screen, increase the field of view to make it more immersive, as well as lighten the load on your head to stop with the strain on your neck. So that's kind of where the technology is at now. Anything to add to that, Blake?
Yeah, it's just interesting that I think there's also a lot of partnerships that are going on now with companies trying to make it much more commercial than it ever was before, especially when you mention like the Oculus Quest. I mean, thinking about the fact that you used to have to consider the machine, the basically CPU and machine you were going to buy in addition to the headset to even think about doing something in VR or getting a video game console. But now the fact that you can even access this technology in an untethered format makes it much more realistic in terms of people having it in their homes or people, giving to their kids or whatever it may be. So I think we're going to see it more and more. So the comfort aspect has got to continue to improve. But I know AR is much different here, but I know a lot of companies are also kind of banding together to get the first, popular AR glasses out there through companies like Ray-Ban and others. So I think only more and more we're going to see this become something that we kind of consider to be an everyday household item, both for things like games like this paper talks about, but I think for other kind of applied fields and kind of uses as well.
Yeah, you bring up another point there, Blake, that I didn't even touch on, which is the compatibility issues. So you were right. In days of old, you used to have to pick a PC that was able to run the thing. You had to get a headset that was compatible with your PC. You had to have the right graphics card and all this stuff to be able to run it and then tether it to the thing. And now you can buy the Oculus Quest for like $400 and it's a all-in-one package. You don't need to worry about anything. You just slap it on your head and go. Buy the things that you want to buy, and with that said, there's some kind of limitations on the device. Obviously, Oculus is owned by Facebook. They want to make sure that you're in their ecosystem. And so there's only certain games on that environment. So it's not as open source, although there's ways around that. And that's a little cumbersome, but in terms of ease of use, it's getting there. Right. Now I do want to kind of take a step back from that and talk about time and just the perception of time in general. We had a wonderful conversation with Peter and Gabby Hancock at HFES in 2018. If you haven't listened to that interview yet, go listen to that because we discuss whether or not time is even real.
Do yourself
talk about
favor.
a brain fry there. That's some additional listening if you want to go listen to that. But time perception is interesting. There's a couple different things that go on with it. In this case, in this study, we are looking at time compression, right? And there are certain things that make time compress and time extend based on what's going on, right? I think we talked about, I don't remember if this was on the show or if this was some other thing. Maybe it was office hours. There was a study that was done that if you're looking at somebody in the eyeballs, time extends a little bit when you make eye contact with somebody. So it seems longer than it actually is. Anyway, that's beyond the point. The point is that time compression and time extension happens in these environments. And so what's happening in VR is you are misinterpreting the amount of time that is passing in, I'm going to say the real world, or in reality. We can call it in reality, right? So let's say 5 minutes passes in reality, and you may think only 4 minutes has passed in VR. And that is because you are perceiving time to have only moved 4 minutes in virtual reality, when in reality, it has moved 5 minutes. And so you are perceiving it as being slower in the virtual environment, but in reality, time outside has compressed. I don't know if I'm doing that justice, Blake. Can you help explain it a little bit better?
Yeah, so basically what Nick is saying, and I think you did a good job, but ultimately what it is like, consider yourself playing a video game, watching something in virtual reality, whatever it may be. If you think that 5 minutes has passed, what's happening in this time compression effect is in reality, 5 minutes has passed, but it passed long before you assumed it had. In this case, in the study, it's some amount of seconds longer than 5 minutes, typically a little bit over a minute. Past 5 minutes, people are estimating that they were playing a game for 5 minutes, that when in reality they played for longer than that. So that's really the time compression effect that Nick is describing. You thinking something's happened at a specific interval of time, but in reality, it's already passed you by.
Yeah, and there's a couple really great examples of this, right? Something painful that you are watching in real time. And I have a story about this that actually just happened this week. I I made dinner for us Monday, pot pies, and they were scalding hot, and I gave my wife one, and
I don't know where this is going. Oh,
it spilled
man.
over on her foot, and
Oh,
it
no.
burned her foot really badly. And I shouldn't laugh because this is still recent.
Oh, no.
But everything in that span of time that was probably like 10 minutes felt like 20 hours.
I'm sure it did. Oh, goodness.
Because it was dinner time and my son was eating, and I was trying to clean up messes and make sure my son was okay and make sure my wife was okay. A lot going on. And it was an unpleasant experience, and it felt like the time that was happening there, it took forever. And that's kind of the opposite of compression, I know, but it's just a perception of time thing that went on. So this can be, let's talk about compression specifically, right? This can be good in a couple different situations. I can think of like a medical procedure that might be unpleasant. You could, like curing burns or something. you can make that go by quicker by compressing time, by like playing video games while you're getting the procedure done or something to distract you from the unpleasant thing that's being done, right? Chemotherapy, something like that. Then there's the opposite spectrum where it could be bad, where you are potentially in an environment where maybe you don't want to lose track of time, like, I don't know, a casino. And you have, you are in the casino and you just keep throwing money away, or winning money or whatever you do in a
Keep drinking
casino.
away, keep like spending way too much time in a dark room with no clocks and no
Exactly.
real sunlight.
And that's part of the trick, right? Like I mentioned, that ambient light going on around you actually plays a big role in how you perceive time. And so that could be a situation where it could be bad. I don't know, Blake, what do you got for compression, time perception?
So one thing you mentioned this a little bit. I do want to call it out a little bit more because I thought it was awesome that it had been studied, or like virtual reality and time compression had been studied in the capacity of like shortening something that's painful or something that you don't want to focus too much on, like chemotherapy. Because I remember when my stepdad was going through that a couple of years ago, it was kind of a horrible process for him. Like, we would be at a place for an hour and he felt like he had been there, an entire day, just from like the draining aspects and all that kind of stuff. And so something like this, where you're basically using a way to trick your mind with a secondary device, in this case virtual reality, it's got some interesting effects that can be really, really positive. And that's not like a real application that I would have thought of because it's so tangential to, playing a game and losing track of time in this case. But thinking about like, okay, yeah, in the surgery world or in the medical world, that could be really beneficial. Or even in times where like kids need to be able to do something that's, a use of their time while their parents are kind of interacting, doing other things they have to do. But I think the negative effects are something that are not talked about enough. I don't know, Nick. I played video games most of my life, and I didn't realize like some of the damage I was doing to my, sleep cycle and the amount of time that I would lose track of time. So I do think this is one of those phenomenon that it's important to understand a little bit more. And it'll be important because as you've really laid out for everybody, the development of these headsets has gotten really awesome since the 80s, and it's probably only going to get better from here and more accessible to everybody. So the more we kind of understand from the human factors and the design side of what we can do in these games to make it so it doesn't turn into you always losing time or always getting so lost and immersed in something that you like the rest of your life or things you have to do passes you by, will be a really important aspect. And we don't want to start causing, adverse health issues like affecting somebody's sleep or, making people like have different mood swings and disorders based off of playing too many games in VR.
Well, let's talk about like what this time compression can do if you are in a situation where it is impacting your sleep cycle, right? It's heavily researched that if your circadian rhythm is off, even by a little bit, it can impact your mood and kind of result in a large number of health problems, right? Like mood disorders, depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, seasonal affective disorder, even. And there's some research out there that would suggest that there are certain types of people, like night owls, that might have a better resistance towards these types of things. But even so, everyone has their own circadian rhythm, and when that is thrown off, some of these major mood disorders can come through. And if we're talking about time compression in VR, if you're thinking about pushing, like throwing on that headset at 7 p.m. and bedtime's 10 p.m. and now it's 3 a.m. because you've been playing a game in VR or something, it's a huge deal, because you've just offset your schedule by that much, and it's going to take time to recover from that. And if you're doing it on a regular basis where, the next night you throw it on at 8 p.m. and you're up until 4, it's again the same thing. You're slowly throwing off that rhythm, and it's going to have lasting health effects.
Absolutely, yeah. And trying to recover from something like that, like I feel like I've learned more about sleep probably in the past 2 years from the just more access to research that's available, kind of like in the zeitgeist, through podcasts and whatnot. But trying to catch back up is really, really hard. It's not something you can just like sleep an entire day and you're just back to normal. It has a really, long lasting effect, and it can take days to kind of get yourself back to a norm. And I think in a world too, where we spend so much more time than we ever have in front of screens, both like mobile, working stuff after work. So it's a careful balance for sure. And I think with VR and the potential for it to be as immersive as it can be, it's gonna be up to, in a lot of ways, the designers of both games and like applications that are designed for VR for you to interact with, to create them in ways that make sure that you as the user are very clear about what's going on in terms of the rest of your life outside, whether it's just like monitoring time or setting windows for when you shouldn't be using the application or whatever it may be. So it's a cool set of technology, but I do think it could have severe consequences if not moderated.
Yeah, so I want to go back to this article and talk about the key research claim here, right? This is a quote. This is the first time we can really isolate that it's not just that you're playing a video game or the content of whatever you're seeing. It's really the fact that it is virtual reality versus a conventional screen that contributes to this time compression effect, right? They had them do something that wasn't that engaging. It was a maze. It's a goal-based thing. It's not like a game where it's engaging. It's just an objective-based thing. And I think that's kind of what the rationale that they would use is. That's why it's shown that, at least in this study, that it's VR and not like playing a game or watching content or anything like that.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So I think that's an interesting claim. And it's I guess validating to see it shown in this study, because I mean, like, it's cool because definitely, like I said, I've experienced it. We've talked about the impacts that this has on things like mood or even what time compression is. Do you have any other last thoughts, opinions on this study here, Blake?
One thing because I'm glad you brought up the main point here, and that's the fact that the game was very simple. So the immersion aspect was really related to VR. Because when we first started, I was like, this can't be that insane, because I know that from conventional games, I've been, sucked into time and, spent too much time playing them, or much longer than I intended. But I think the fact that we're seeing this like related directly to VR of something that's very simple, I wonder if it's kind of the same magnitude if you played like or if two people played the same game in different contexts. So, traditional versus VR, and how that would affect them. Because I feel like part of it could be some of the immersion is related to the game, which then is related to the player's interest and things of that nature.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because the kind of last piece that I want to talk about here is the why. Why is like that's kind of the next step in this research, is what aspects of being in virtual reality make it or contribute to that time compression, right? Is it the fact that you are playing a game? Is it that you're doing some goal-based thing? Or is it because you lack a peripheral vision or something like that? So that's kind of the next steps in this research, is to figure out why. They do say that there is one kind of thing that I kind of mentioned here tangentially, but it's the body awareness piece, right? I mentioned it in the sense of being aware of your surroundings, your body and the surroundings, the light coming through the windows, that type of thing. But they do mention here, when you look down in virtual reality, you might see nothing where your body is, or you might see a schematic of a body, but you don't feel like you're in your body. And does that impact the way that you perceive time in virtual reality? Or is it other things like heartbeat and bodily rhythms to track the passage of time? And when you're in these environments, you have less of a sense of your body in reality versus virtual reality, and you're missing the pulses of that timekeeping mechanism. So there's some interesting suggestions in there. Curious to see where the research goes from here. I think it's really cool.
I think there's a massive opportunity to, based on that one theory, right? So I kind of want to break it down for listeners real quick. So there are theories out there that state we may rely on our heartbeat and other bodily rhythms to help our brain track the passage of time. So looking down and you see a less vivid image of your body, or of a body that you don't identify as yours from your brain's thought process, then you may be less likely to even, keep track of time in a normal way. So maybe that's what's going on here. But that little bit right there, which this is all related to playing games and VR, but it makes me think that there's a lot to be done in neuroscience and understanding how the brain actually works and communicates with the rest of the body, through studies like this that are focused on like what happens in virtual reality. Because a theory like that, where your body is basically, if your brain's not seeing your body, it's not as concerned with these different rhythmic pulses that it's usually keeping track of and identifying like you with yourself. And so it kind of experiences the world in a different way. So I wonder, like, over time, how this will like translate into understanding, just neurology and your brain in general.
Yeah, I do want to mention one other thing too, right? And it's fun to talk about time compression and playing games and having like the weird effects, right? But there is some real benefit to doing this. This is kind of the application piece. What can we take away from a study like this? And I think that's really important to talk about, is to what you could do is potentially get insight on how to design environments, how to design experiences in virtual reality that potentially can minimize some of the harm done by some of the things that we just talked about, right? Like if you do have missing pulses for that timekeeping mechanism, maybe there are ways to design around that so you have a better sense of your body and time in virtual environments and experiences. And potentially providing that insight to designers of these experiences, so that way they are less harmful on the human body in the long term. I think that's kind of one really interesting application here that we almost got away from, but I'm glad we kind of mentioned it, because it is like, this is a fun topic. Time compression. It's like one of those things you don't realize the harmful effects of until it's happened. There are real world consequences here, and hopefully this will provide insight into that type of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those are really great points. And I think the more that we're able to kind of design around issues like this or phenomena that we learn about like this that are related to VR, the better off people are going to be able to enjoy the experience and not be sucked into a lot of the negative consequences behind it.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, thank you to our patrons this week for selecting our topic. And thank you to our friends over at UC Santa Cruz for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post the links on our blog and our Slack and our Discord whenever we find them. So go join us over there for more discussion. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back to see what's going on in the Human Factors community.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
All right. As always, huge thank you to our patrons and especially our honorary Human Factors Cast staff, Michelle, Tripp, because patrons like you keep the show running and keep the lights on over here at Human Factors Cast. Thank you so much for your continued support. Go check out Patreon. We got always like the ad always says, rewards are always changing. We even got some other stuff up there like a show sponsor role. So if you're interested in something like that, go check that out. Patrons are actually what keep the show on. I don't know if we've said that, but seriously, look at the quality of us streaming video now. It's you've mentioned it in the pre-show, Blake. It's come a long way, and it's all because of our patrons. All right, let's go ahead and switch gears and get to this next part of the show.
It came from...
That's right. It came from this week. It's Reddit. This is the part of the show where we search all over the internet to bring you topics the community is talking about. This could be anything related to the field of human factors, as long as it's good enough for Blake and I to sit here and talk about and answer, and we have stuff to talk about. Anyway, that's a long-winded thing. It's anywhere. It could be anywhere. All right, so let's go ahead and we have 3 today. And we talked about this in the pre-show a little bit. We're gonna tell a story today. We're gonna talk about this story of Joe Schmo, who is going through early career development. Let's talk about it that way. All right. So we have 3 here. This first one here is from Left Noob Enthusiast on the User Experience subreddit. I was interviewed for a job interview I think I'm not qualified for. Could that be a mistake? They go on to write, hello there. I am a new grad, will be graduating this year, and had cold mailed a product manager at a tech company for an entry-level product designer job. To my surprise, he sent me a design challenge link. However, after clicking on the link, they were looking for someone with 4 years of experience. I had clearly mentioned I had no corporate experience, but I took my chance and I worked on the design challenge and submitted it. Now he said he wanted to take it forward and invited me for an interview. The design challenge clearly mentioned they were looking for someone with 4 years experience, and obviously I don't have that. So what's happening here? Does he just not notice that I was a new grad, or did he want to give me a chance before rejecting me? Blake, what do you think what's going on in this situation? Have you ever had anything like this happen to you?
Yes, I absolutely have. And I think this is one of those times where it's probably a good time to remind people that you are as good as other people think you are. So definitely take a step back here, because I think the connotation you're putting on yourself is like, I'm right out of grad school, I'm too new at this, I don't know what I'm doing. But obviously somebody's trying to give you a chance in some way. Now, whether they, totally weren't paying attention, needed to fill the role that badly, maybe, but it sounds like to me that although you think you're not in the right place, maybe you are. It could have been the way you presented yourself in whatever precursor, because you said there was like a cold email or cold call. So maybe it was how you presented yourself in an email. Maybe they looked you up on LinkedIn, or they looked at the program that you're from and were like, hey, maybe this is worth a shot. But regardless, it sounds like that after all, you really are in the right place, because even if you, one thing to consider for like hiring managers and job postings that you see, yes, they put, amount of experience they want on there. But if you are able to get an interview without that experience, just show off what you can do. Because sometimes they'll put a larger tier of, or whatever, a higher limit in terms of experience or job qualifications than they actually need, which is not a great practice, but you can still get the interview and have the conversation. But I don't know. I think that this is not somebody not noticing something and just looking to reject you. I think this person likely saw potential in you through one of the actions that you did, whether it's the email or the first design challenge that you mentioned here, and they actually wanted to give you a chance. I hope that's the case. But Nick, what are you seeing here? Have you kind of been in this situation yourself?
I've not necessarily been in the situation myself. We'll talk about imposter syndrome a little later, but I think what's happening here is the fact that the bad practice of saying 4 years, right? Entry level job, 4 years experience, $15 an hour, that type of thing. I think the 4 years probably came from some writer. And if it's a large tech company, they say it's a tech company. They don't disclose the size. If it's a large tech company, chances are the person who needs the hire is not the person that's writing the qualifications for the job. Usually they farm those out to HR or marketing or something like that, where they will put in things that they find elsewhere on the internet. At least this is my understanding, right? So they'll see like, oh, this position typically needs someone with this many years of experience. And if it's a tech company, they're going to say that everywhere. They're going to say it, in the job posting, they're going to say it everywhere. I tend to agree with you, Blake. If you've got the interview, take it. Kind of believe in yourself until, it happens or doesn't happen. The worst you can do is, not be honest with them, though. I mean, like, just tell them like, hey, maybe omit the truth. Maybe don't mention the fact that you have less than 4 years experience here, but don't call it out either. I don't know. I feel like I'm telling you to lie. Don't lie, but don't tell them that, you missed it, because it's on them at this point. If they haven't noticed, it's on them. That's how I feel about it. And that might not be the right way to go about it. But
well, I think you're right, though. I mean, if they've gotten this far, I guess my opinion is that the amount of experience they had maybe doesn't even matter that much. And that if that should be coming up in the interview or when they look at your resume anyway. So, I mean, definitely, like Nick said, don't lie about it. But at the end of the day, I think that you've already gotten past the having to be worried about how many years of experience you have.
Honestly, that comes from the submission of a resume, right? Like, that's the check. They look at your work experience and determine whether or not it's 4 years or equivalent, and say, okay, you're in to the next round, right? That's kind of the check that I would imagine that 4-year check is at anyway. So I don't know. Go for it. Do it. You got this.
You cold mailed them. Go after it.
We believe in you. All right. We should get into the next one here. So again, we're telling a story here about this. Let's pretend it's the same person. Although this one was written by Gom Soup on the user experience subreddit. So this next one here, just pretend it's the same person. Now they've been working at this company for a while. They say, is it really that bad to stay at the same company for more than 2 years? They must really like it there. They go on to write, I'm a UI UX designer at a medical device company in the United States. And I've worked here for about 8 months. I graduated last year, and this is my first full-time job. Since it's a medical device company, everything is moving extremely slow, similar to the defense industry. Because of that, people stay at this company for a long duration. The team I'm in is getting backstabbed pretty often, but I don't think one of those will become a death blow that will get me fired, hopefully. Since all jobs are requiring at least 3 to 5 years of experience, I'm thinking about staying at the company for 3 to 5 years and move to a different company at a medium or senior level. Thing is, I'm seeing a lot of posts saying that employees that stay at the same company for more than 2 years are valued less. Is it really that bad to stay at the same company for more than 2 years in the industry? Blake?
This is really interesting of a post. So I don't know where the validity of this you're devalued if you stayed somewhere for more than 2 years is in the human factors or UX industry. I don't really know where that's coming from.
I do.
As long as you do, then you can go through it. But it just doesn't seem like, from my perspective, the way this is written, that it's worth just sticking 3 to 5 years out. Because listen, the way that I perceive this stuff is, if you're not feeling like you're either happy, growing, enjoying the process, or learning a lot, then maybe you don't need to be at a company, whether it's 7 years down the line or it's 1 year in. So I don't really know about this whole deal of just staying so that it looks like you stayed somewhere for a specific amount of time, so then you can go apply for other jobs, because that's like having a plan B and just executing plan A until you're ready for plan B. And I just think you might as well go and do the other thing you want to do, because like the post before this, I mean, you could get lucky and get a job offer for something with a lot less experience, or you could spend a lot of time networking instead of waiting for 3 to 5 years and build your way into the next job that you want to do, or be doing stuff on your nights and weekends to help you get a different job. So I just don't really know that if you're feeling this way and you're not really excited about what you're doing and you're kind of worried about the longevity at the company as it is, mentioning like a potential death blow to get you fired, maybe it's just time to consider looking at other places and networking to see what else you could do, and not really worrying too much about the 3 to 5 year cap.
Okay, let me address this 2 years thing. I think the 2 years is being conflated. I don't think people get devalued for staying less than 2 years, right? There's certainly a generational shift. I would say those of older generations, I'll be polite there, typically value things like loyalty to a company, right? And loyalty is rewarded. However, I feel like the younger generations have figured out how to quote unquote hack the system. I think the 2 years comes from the, I guess, socially accepted amount of time before moving on to another company, without it looking like you're just jumping from company to company. People in early careers do this to increase their salary. And I think that's where this 2 years comes from. You stay with a company for 2 years, you jump ship to another company, get a huge bump in salary, and then do the same thing another 2 years later, another huge increase in salary, and the cycle goes on and on. And so I think, at some point there's going to be you're I'm going to say it, you're too old to get a job at a certain company because they want somebody with, fresh out of school or something that's less expensive or something. So it's a trade-off, I feel like, in terms of generational, to get to a place where you will either have work lined up for a while or, you have a steady job. It's weird. So that's my opinion on where that 2 years has come from. I personally value loyalty. I think, if I were in charge of the payroll, I would pay people, a substantial boost for being there for a long time, because that means that they're going to keep working for me as long as their work is good, right? And so, is it really that bad to stay at the company for more than 2 years? Absolutely not. I think it kind of just fits, or it depends on. Damn it! I did the thing. We need like an "it depends" buzzer over here.
Like the bleep button.
Right. It does depend though on your situation, right? We had a question a couple weeks ago about a mother who was asking about jumping from contract to contract and whether having children impacted that. And if you have children, having a stable job, a stable income might be more valuable to you than, let's say, a 10 to 20% increase in salary. That 10 to 20% increase in salary might also be very helpful to somebody who has a family and mouths to feed. So it can be kind of tempting.
Absolutely.
But it's like, do you take that risk? There's a lot of factors involved. So I wouldn't necessarily harp on anybody for jumping ship after 2 years. And I say jumping ship, but really it's leaving a company. As long as you do it on good terms, then I don't see any issues here. I don't know. It's a complex question, and I think there's a lot of conflation going on there with devaluing somebody after 2 years. I don't think that's necessarily true. So anyway, we're telling the story of this person, Joe Schmo, who has now graduated college, gone to the first job, and is thinking about jumping ship. So let's answer the question. Moving from one company to another. Imposter syndrome? Question mark. This one's from Why Wait So Overpriced on the user experience subreddit. And so they say, so I'm a level 1 at my current company I'm working at, but I've been leading projects on my own, more or less. So I'm potentially moving out to a similar sized company with a more established design culture and cross-functional relationships with user experience, but it'll be more of a mid-level role with an entirely new domain I'll have to grasp. During my interview, I think I overload myself a bit on how I deal with certain situations and work with PMs and engineers, but maybe that's just imposter syndrome. I know my potential manager will have tons of resources for me, and I've mentioned imposter syndrome to him during my one-on-one interview. Any tips for me when I start the new company? Blake.
So this all sounds normal for sure,
Yeah.
because it's so funny to me. So when you go through the interview process, you try to be somewhere in the middle, but you tend to always oversell yourself because like when a question gets asked, what the right answer is, so you'll lean into that. Like that's pretty natural here. So overselling yourself in an interview is one thing, but the reality of that is the person you're talking to has to be able to weigh, like, okay, how much am I trusting all of this person is saying? And they have to weigh how much they expect you to be able to do on your own, but they'll still need to like help you through the company. So ultimately, because you're starting something completely new in a different style of role, with a new domain, I mean, there is going to be enough kind of learning curve uptime for you to kind of get a handle on where you're at in reality. But if you already have been doing a lot of like management and dealing with different cross-functional teams outside of a company with a really defined like design culture, I think you're going to find it a good bit easier to insert yourself into a new culture that has design processes that are put in place, and you'll be able to learn a whole lot just from being in a new spot. And if you were upfront about somebody in a one-on-one interview, like before you even got the job, there are imposter syndrome issues, that's awesome because it shows a good bit of vulnerability. So from my perspective, if that was you and me in an interview, I would have a lot more trust than I did when you first walked into the interview, just because you were able to tell me exactly how you're feeling. So I think that there's probably a nice, careful balance of feeling like you're going to a brand new role. You're kind of nervous about it. You haven't gone through that proof of concept period where you have to perform or whatever and see what you're really made of. But I think that's natural going into any brand new role. And I wouldn't doubt your prior experience, and then kind of think about retrospectively what you would improve from your prior job into a new role and see how you can grow into that at this new place.
Yeah. My answer is going to be fairly simple here. I think imposter syndrome is a terrible disease, and needs to be eradicated. But I also feel like, look, if you are going to, if you're interviewing with a company that, in your words, have established a more established design culture, cross-functional relationships with UX, chances are they know what they're doing when they're hiring people. And so I would look at the fact that the company has this great design culture, great cross-functional relationship with other groups, and say, okay, well, they know what they're doing if they were to hire me, which would then backhandedly give me faith in myself if they hired me. So what I'm saying here is they're hiring you for a reason, and it's normal to feel imposter syndrome. But if they didn't think that you couldn't do the job, they wouldn't have hired you. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. So, there's a certain understanding that any job that you pick up, you're going to have a learning curve where you're learning a new domain. Potentially, it could be the same domain, but there's still nuances to every job that you have to learn. And it's not just a walk in and lead the show. It's going to be walk in, learn the culture, learn the product, learn the user, and then act on those. And, it might take you a month, 2 months to get up to speed. But once you're there, you're there. And again, they won't hire you unless they think you can do it. And if you can't do it, then they'll fire you. And that's it. That's the simplicity of it.
Yeah. And I mean, either way, it's going to be a good learning experience. And I think a lot of people get caught in their heads about that they don't know what they're doing. And it's easy to do because we work, I think, like, especially in the human factors world, we work in a lot of complex domains where just learning a domain seems insane, much less doing the job.
I agree. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and get into one more thing? It's pretty self-explanatory. We don't have a little fun thing for this yet. I don't know if we will, but we have one more thing. Blake, what's your one more thing?
One more thing, Nick. This resource that I came across on the internet while I was taking a Google machine learning course is, I forget what it's exactly called, but it's called People Plus AI, the guidebook. And it's basically a guidebook of design patterns from Google about how to implement AI or think about AI in terms of when you're designing new software, where it would be useful, kind of like material design, but for thinking about AI systems. So it's just one of those things I wanted to throw out there to make people aware of, because I'm sure a lot of people have seen it before, but it was something I stumbled across by accident. And I thought that much like material design, the value it brings to how I think about, the way when AI would be beneficial to think about in terms of pieces of software or application development, it just provides nice scaffolding. So it is just something I wanted to throw out there.
Yeah, we'll put a link to that in the show notes. So this is how people and AI interact together. I'm looking at it now. It's pretty cool, right? It gives you this is actually kind of a neat little web interface for this too, right? It kind of gives you a couple different entry points, right? Like you could just get started, or it breaks it down by chapters, and it's actually it's pretty neat. I'm looking at it now for the first time, and I'm pretty excited to jump into this, Blake. So thank you for bringing this up. And like I said, we'll put a link to this down in the show notes. Anything else, people AI guidebook?
I think that's it. That's all I got for this one more thing this week, Nick.
All right. For me, man, I got to say, getting an apartment is harder than getting a PlayStation 5. I don't know if you've tried to get a PlayStation 5 yet.
I tried today, and it was not successful.
Yes, right? It's hard. So the housing market, Aaron and I actually talked about this last week on our post show. Housing market right now is kind of nuts. It's very competitive. We're talking with a real estate agent right now who had a client jump off the plane, go to a house, and had to make a decision that day before a certain time. I think it was 4 p.m. or something, and they had 8 minutes to spare when they wrote the offer. They got off the plane, saw the house, made an offer same day, because the market is insane right now.
Yeah.
Now, that is actually being carried over to places like apartments. We're looking for, specific parameters, and, so that way I can do the show and have an office basically while we house hunt in this new area that I'm not mentioning yet. So another part of the country. How about that? And so finding a place with these specific parameters was difficult enough when we visited. And then now we have to camp. And we have to camp out on the website. So I had my 5 different tabs open with the different places that we were considering, and some rank higher than others. And there were compromises we were willing to make on some, but not others. And so it's like I had all these windows open, and like every couple hours I'd refresh, and then one would pop up, and we were like, "Oh yes, that's it." And then it'd be gone like in 20 minutes, and it's like kind of insane, because I think the attributes that we're looking for, certain number of bedrooms, certain number of baths with certain attributes like a pantry or washer dryer unit, those types of things, right? Those attributes are more desirable, and so they're more competitive. And so I'm sitting here looking at like the 5 different tabs, every hour, just refresh, just making sure that it's there. And I'm having a harder time than I have finding a PlayStation 5, because at least those are up and available and you can get on it. I still haven't got one, but But I did get an apartment, so I guess maybe it's not as hard as a PlayStation 5. I don't know. We have one kind of like a bare minimum that we've accepted. We're willing to eat the application fee if another one, better one, comes available. Anyway.
Nice. Well, that's good. At least you got prospects, and the PS5 is still, hiding from everybody.
Yeah. Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll just say one more thing. I guess, no. You know what?
Two more things?
No, it's one more thing. I'm going to leave it at that. Maybe I'll say this one next week. All right, so that's going to be it for today, everyone. Let us know what you guys think of the news story this week. Have you ever been in VR? Do you have time dilation when you go in there? Let us know. You can hang out with us on our Slack or Discord or get to us at any of our social channels. You can visit our official website. And if you are so inclined, feel free to reach out to us about joining the Human Factors Cast Digital Media Lab. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can leave us a 5-star review on your podcast medium of choice if they allow you to do it. If they don't, you can tell your friends about us. That always helps the show grow. And if you have the financial means, you can always consider supporting us on Patreon. It allows the team to grow. It allows us to do more fancier things with more fancier bells and whistles. And we do give back to you for doing that. So, think about it. And as always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. I'm going to thank Mr. Blake Arnsdorff for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about playing games in virtual reality?
If you guys want to debate whether time is real or not, you can find me across social media at Don't Panic UX.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me streaming on Twitch Tuesdays now at 1 p.m. Pacific time for office hours, and across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning in to Human Factors Cast. Until next time,
it depends.